Greetings everyone and welcome to Dialogue, the dialogue on analog music reproduction. This is a very special episode. In fact, this is the first video of 3 dedicated to the construction of a vintage hi-fi system starter kit. In this episode, we're going to take a look at the first stage, a low budget. Are you ready? Let's go. Okay guys, so I'm very excited. This is a special video. This is the first video where we're going to talk of the main suggestions, recommendations in 4 main parts of a hi-fi system towards a vintage type of market. So we're going to take a look at turntables, cartridges, amplifiers, and speakers in order to create a nice vintage package belonging mainly, we could go from the 60s all the way up to the early 90s, but mainly in the middle. And we're going to try to do this below $1,000, 1,000 euro, more or less. It depends also from the choices. It depends also from the state of conservation, of preservation, of refurbishing of these pieces of gear, of this equipment. But if you manage to find the right ones, you're going to have a lot of fun. Before starting, I think we just have to briefly try to mention why, for what purpose we should orient our interest. We should build our system with a vintage approach. Obviously, you can just pick one component if you're missing just one. You don't necessarily have to buy all of them, obviously. But in some cases, a lot of people, newbies, young people also, start to look around themselves. They want a hi-fi system, and vintage is absolutely one of the best places to start. In fact, our first reason why to look into vintage, convenience. The costs are very low, and obviously it brings us to our second point. The quality is usually very, very high. So for a small expense, you're going to have a lot of quality. This is valid usually for the used market in general. But vintage, it is different. It is better. Plus, it's also going to be easier to sell them back afterwards because a lot of these pieces, this gear we're going to talk about, is highly sought after. So it's almost like an investment. Plus, what is another another important point of why doing vintage audio? Well, obviously, it's the sound signature. That rich, warm, round sound that we have around the 70s mainly, but also in a little before and a little after. It's just different from what we're used today. In fact, if we have to go at a high-end price range, it's probably better to try and get something made today because there has been advancement in the different technologies. But again, if we're talking about a budget, and we're going to take a look at low, mid, and high, in this video, the low budget, vintage does win in most cases. Plus, the final reason why to go vintage, it's that magic charm. Ready to start, guys? Let's start. Okay, so our first section is dedicated to turntables, the source. Now, I'm just going to give you a few indications because I think it's easy to find them and the quality is astonishing. The first recommendation is, obviously, you know it. I did a video just a few weeks ago. Here's a link. Dual turntables. The original ones starting in the 60s all the way up. They go around the 70s and beyond that, obviously. And I highly recommend the 1019, the 1219, and also the 1229, which is probably a little easier to handle. These 3 models, but also other models, obviously, of dual. They made so many, but these 3 models are special. They don't cost that much. We're around 200, 250 euro, dollars. It depends. The condition, try to get them always in good condition, guys. Otherwise, send everything back. Or get something very, very low, like $50, $80, and you bring it to a lab, which with the same amount of money, really not that much. A lot of people think, oh my God, I'm going to spend so much in a lab. No, that's not true. You don't need that much money to refurbish something. So with the same expense, you're going to have something even better, actually, if you have time and you want to invest time and the hassle to go through all of this. But it's rewarding in the end. And this obviously is valid for every little piece we're going to take a look at today. So dual turntables is surely one of the main key suggestions I want to give you for turntables, also because they are cheap. If you go for the Garrett or the Torrents, they're much more expensive. This is an idler type of turntable I just suggest you. Plus, another one I want to suggest you, again, we're going to take a look at an idler type. I'm sorry. They're cool, they're good, they have that special vintage sound. I cannot not recommend the Lenco L75, also known as Goldring Lenco, because Goldring was making the cartridges in the beginning, so that's why it was also known as LG75. In any case, look for Lenco's L75, can't go wrong. Another excellent, fabulous idler turntable for more or less the same price, maybe slightly higher because there are more soothe after. So we're 200, 250, maybe a little more. It depends, but you have to be patient when you're hunting for vintage gear. Okay, guys? Obviously, I'm going to put links and more details in the video description here below. Let's proceed to the next section. Okay, for our next section, we're going to take a look at 3 excellent cartridges. Now, you guys, and you already vintage buffs, I know you're ready there. There are tons and tons of turntables, cartridges, speakers, amplifiers, etc., etc. Please don't start hating me. I just had to make a decision which for me are the best. I'm not going to go through the sound signatures of all of these, obviously. Some I have tried, some I haven't. I want to be honest, but I am bringing you to your attention among the most famous and renowned models and versions and pieces of gear. So trust me on this. Okay, let's start. Cartridges. The first cartridge I want to suggest is the very famous and mythical Shure V15. Now, there are lots of models, 1, 2, 3, etc. All of them are good. I mean, we're talking about vintage cartridges, so be careful when you choose a cartridge. It should be at a decent point. Don't get something completely consumed all the way down. If you do, no problem. You can get replacements for the stylus, because all these vintage cartridges had exchangeable styluses. You can also get styli, in Latin it should be styli. You can also get new styli made today, so you have a perfectly and almost new, I would say, cart good to go. So you can even save some money if you get just the body and then you get a new stylus, or for someone else, a medium use stylus. It depends. You have to, as I said, work around to find the optimal solution. Otherwise, you can find everything already combined together. Maybe refurbished, maybe not. You have to check around. I will also give you at the end of the video a very cool site, which I've already spoken about in a special video I made on buying hi-fi vintage and new stuff. Here's a link, but I wanted to say it again. That's my #1 resource to buy stuff, and I'll tell you at the end of the video. Okay, so the Shure V15 is one of the best. And it's a good idea also, I would like to say, to buy these cartridges, I'm telling you, because they have a high compliance. They are designed, made, conceived for this type of turntable, of arms, etc., etc. So there is a reason, besides obviously the sound signature. So if you start buying new styli, be careful. Like, a lot of people are adding the JICO SAS on these, which will bring the price tag much higher, so I can't recommend that. But that's a typical combination, the Shure with the JICO. And that's an excellent, excellent combination. But be careful about the price tag, about the compliance. But I mean, the JICO is obviously designed to use on these types of turntables. No problem. And here we are around, it depends obviously from the state, the condition of the stylus, etc., around $50, $150 euro, more or less. Obviously, they can go much higher if they're the last models and in perfect condition. So you have to find the right thing. Okay, my second suggestion is the Pickering 15, another mythical cartridge, vintage cartridge. And specifically the model 625, which actually brings us to our third suggestion, which are very close, very similar, the Stanton 681 EE. EEE. These are very similar. All three of them are excellent. They're going to work perfectly with the Dual and the Lenco. So go ahead and buy with confidence. Great sound, great vintage sound. The Pickering and the Stanton, I forgot to say, go around $100, $150 more or less. Okay, let's proceed. Okay, time for amplification, our third section. Here I'm going to give you 4 suggestions of different eras, actually, starting from the most renowned and the most highly recommended. I would say that I had to choose integrated amplifiers due to the low budget. In the following videos, I'm probably going to suggest a preamplifier and an amplifier. It depends, a power amplifier. But in this case, we have to go integrated. And don't worry, I mean, these are excellent products. Okay, so the first amplifier I highly recommend, even here in this case, we're in the mythical domain, the NAD 3020, Series 20. Ooh, baby. Along also with the 3120, which is excellent, is stripped down, it has less components, and it has a shorter circuit. It should be even better, they say. I know better the 3020, which is excellent. It's a round, warm sound, perfect. And the price is quite cheap, and that's why it's easy to assemble all these parts together. We're around $200 and $250. There's a lot, so I think this is the best recommendation. But I'm going to tell you more. And they started to produce these around 1978. Okay, guys? Now we're going to pass to a 1985 production, which actually was considered the response, the answer, the Japanese answer to the NAD, to the NAD. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the Yamaha A320. Now, these are very rare to find, so it's not that good a recommendation, actually. But I wanted to insert it because it does have a very, very good sound. Even here, minimalistic design, around the same price, $200, $250, a good choice. For our third selection, instead, we're jumping to 1987. We're going with Rotel RA-820. Another very famous production. Here, actually, you're gonna save some money because I went around and you can find it for $100, $150, even less. And again, this is a very famous and integrated amplifier. It does have its numbers. If you can, go to the NAD, in my opinion. Another, and our final example, very good, is from Pioneer, the A400. This is a little later model. It's they started making them in 1991, so it does have a different signature. But again, the price is very good, around $200, $250, and again, I mean, it's an excellent compromise. I do recommend, again, going to the other models, the top ones in the list. Let's proceed. Okay, for our last section, speakers. Now here it's even more difficult to make a choice. There's so many. So I just picked 4 models, again, spanning from the 50s all the way to the late 90s. So they have different sound signatures, but again, they're all matchable, easily pairable with all these other machines I told you about. Okay. Let's start with a very famous speaker, the KLH Model 6. Now, there are various types of models, But the Model 6 is highly regarded, is probably one of the best. These started in 1958. My God, I can't believe it. Obviously, they went also in the following years, but that's the starting point. And that is a true vintage sound. And still today, a lot of people buy them, these and also the other models I'm going to tell you about, and refurbish them because they do have a special character. Okay, our second speaker is from Acoustic Research, another very famous speaker, the AR3a. This is from 1969, so a decade afterwards. And here we're going more in the $500, $600 area. I forgot to mention that the KLH was around $300, $400 area, okay? So it depends, obviously. You're going to find much more, much less. But that's the good middle ground I suggest you. Our third selection comes from 1991. We're already going much ahead now. This is a smaller type of speaker. The KLH and the Acoustic Research were pretty big. Not floor stands, not completely floor stands. That's more of a modern concept. But the next ones are bookshelf, we could say. The Epos ES11, fabulous speaker, small but very powerful. This goes around $400. And our last choice comes from the Paradigm Reference Studio 20. Now, they made a lot of versions. The last one just came out, and all of these are highly regarded. Very, very good. I would hunt for the V2, the V3, and the V4, starting around 1998. So this is quite close. I mean, 30 years ago, more or less. But, I mean, if you want something a little more modern, this is the right choice. Otherwise, if you want a true vintage speaker, go for the first two, obviously. Okay, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave your comments here below for all these 4 sections. I'm very interested, and I'm sure a lot of people are interested in your suggestions and recommendations. And remember, especially today, music was born analog. Well, guys, if you're enjoying my videos and you're enjoying my channel, please consider to subscribe by clicking the black and white logo here below. Also, don't forget to click the notification bell so you'll never miss an episode and you will become a true member of the analog community.